Thank you very much for inviting me. This is unusual. It's 2020, so I'm glad that you managed to make this happen. I came here to talk about cyborg art and cyborgism and how we as humans are slowly merging with technology, slowly but continuously merging with technology, and this will bring up many new opportunities in the future. I would like to start talking about animals and other species. We are surrounded by animals that have organs and senses that we humans don't have. For example, elephants can sense infrasounds. They can hear sounds that we can't even imagine they exist. There's many insects that can sense ultrasounds. Many fish can sense the magnetic north, so they know and feel where the north is. We don't have these senses. So I was always fascinated about the amount of senses and organs that other species have and that we don't have. So I became interested in creating new senses and adding new senses into my body when I was at university. And this is called cyborg art. It's basically the art of creating new senses or new organs and implanting them into your body so that you can extend your senses beyond the limitations of the human body. I was always interested in extending my sense of color because I was born completely colorblind, so I've never actually seen color. So I was interested in creating a new organ that would allow me to sense the vibrations of color. Color is a vibration, is a light vibration, but we could also sense color through other organs if we had them. So my aim was to create an organ that would allow me to sense the vibrations of color without changing my sight, because I liked seeing things as I do in grayscale, because I've always seen in grayscale. So I wanted to have a sense of color without changing my sight. So I saw that Isaac Newton created this theory in the 1600s where he related each color of the rainbow to a musical note. So he was right. Color and sound have something in common. They're both vibrations. They are both frequencies. And if we could hear the vibration of red, we would hear a note between F and F sharp. So when I was at university, Adam Montandon and I created a system that allowed us to hear the vibrations of color. It was a computer system that allowed you to hear through a webcam the vibrations of color. So blue would sound C sharp, F would be red, and this allowed you to hear the vibrations of color. So when we created this system, we had the sense of color, but I wanted to create a new body part. So when I looked at nature, I saw that many species have antennas, so I thought that having an antenna implanted in my head that would allow me to sense color would be the best option. And I saw this fish that has this antenna that's circular, so it allows you to sense colors 360 degrees. So inspired by this fish, and by Isaac Newton's theory, we created this antenna that is implanted in my head, and it allows me to feel the vibrations of color in front of me. So if there's red in front of me, the vibration of red goes into my head, and then I hear F sharp, which I know is always red. So color sounds like this. So now we're hearing from red to orange, and it keeps going up. So I slowly memorized the sound of each color until I was able to distinguish all the visual spectrums through sound waves, through this new organ and this new sense. So it became completely normal, subliminal. I started having favorite colors, and color to me became a new sense. But then I realized that there's many, many more colors that exist that humans cannot sense, like infrareds and ultraviolets. Many animals can sense this. So I decided to include infrared and ultraviolet in the system, so suddenly I was able to sense more colors than a human eye. Sensing infrared, for example, now allows me to tell if there's movement detectors in a room, or I can go to a shop or a bank and tell if the alarms are on or off, and in many cases they are off. So it's interesting to know that some of these infrared detectors are actually fake or not working. And ultraviolet perception allows me to know if it's a good day or a bad day to sunbathe. So if I go outside and I sense there's a high level of ultraviolet, I avoid the sun. So it's actually practical to continuously extend color perception. And I didn't want to use or wear an antenna. I wanted the antenna to be implanted. So I did trans-species surgery, which is basically I tried to find a doctor willing to implant a new organ in my head, and then I found one. So the antenna was surgically implanted inside my head, and it's basically 4 implants to hold the structure of the new organ. The third implant is the chip that vibrates inside my head depending on the light frequency in front of me. And the fourth implant is internet connection, which was added later. And this allows me to also receive colors from other devices. So now there's 5 people in the world that have permission to send colors directly into my head. So they can do this by using their mobile phone. They can stream live images from wherever they are to my head. So now I'm here in Berlin. But if my friend from New York wants to stream live colors from a sunset or a supermarket, he can do it live. So I could suddenly be sensing colors from other parts of the world. I see this as the use of the internet as a sense. We've been using the internet as a tool and a communication system for many decades now. But the use of the internet as a sense or a sensory extension is something that I think we'll start seeing more and more in the near future. Once this is possible, it can allow us to also sense things that are way beyond this planet. In my case, I can connect my antenna to NASA's International Space Station, and then I can start sensing colors from space. So this allows me to explore space without having to physically go there. So this opens up a new territory of exploration where you don't need to be an astronaut to explore space. You can be a senstronaut. So basically, you can connect your body to senses or sensors that are in space, and then you can start sensing space 24 hours a day and explore space without having to physically go there. This is my brain, so my brain has changed because I've been sensing colors for so long that I no longer feel the difference between the software and my brain, and that's why I define myself as a cyborg. Cyborg comes from 2 words, cybernetic organism. I feel that I'm not using technology or wearing technology. I feel that I am technology. But the word cyborg has been used in many different ways, especially in Hollywood. It has been used in a bad way. So I went to meet the man that invented the word. He was Manfred Kleins. He died this year. So I visited him and I asked him what he meant with the word cyborg. And basically, it's very simple. Cyborg is a body and mind modified by electronics. You don't necessarily need an implant to be a cyborg. If your mind and body has been modified by electronics, you are probably a cyborg. And many of you are probably cyborgs. If you already say that, instead of saying my mobile phone is running out of battery, if you say I'm running out of battery, that is a clear sign that you are already incorporating technology as part of your identity. He created this word when there were already other words in existence. The word bionic already existed, but bionic is defining a body modified by electronics. It doesn't include the mind, so that's why Manfred Kleins included cyborg. And then mechatronic is a body modified by mechanic parts, so it can be any mechanical system. I had the problem in 2004 with the UK government with the word cyborg, because they didn't allow me to include my picture as part of my identity. They said there was a problem. There's a law or a norm that says electronic equipment is not allowed on passport photos. But I replied saying that this is not an electronic equipment. This is a new body part. The antenna is part of my body, and I told them that I identified as a cyborg. And they didn't like this, so it became a battle with the UK passport office until in the end they allowed me to appear in the passport with the antenna, and they allowed me to identify myself as a cyborg. So this helps me travel and helps in many situations where I'm asked to remove it and I say it's not possible to remove, the passport can help. I'm now in conversations with the Swedish government because the materials that I used to create the antenna are Swedish. So I'm telling the Swedish government that I am Swedish because part of my body is Swedish. So I think I should be entitled to become a Swedish citizen. They still haven't replied, but hopefully they will. So I'm not alone in this. There's many other humans in this planet that are merging with technology voluntarily in order to have new senses and new organs that are not traditionally human. One of them is Mune Rivas. She has the seismic sense. She has 2 implants in her feet that vibrate whenever there's an earthquake in the world. So now she's in Barcelona, but if there's an earthquake in China, she will feel the vibration in her feet. So she calls it the seismic sense. She also has internet connection in her feet, so she can connect her feet to other seismographs, not only around the world, but in space. So if she connects her feet to the seismograph on the moon, she can feel moonquakes. So she can also become a senstronaut and extend her senses beyond planet Earth. There's also Manel de Aguas. He has two fins here that allow him to sense the weather, so he can feel the atmospheric pressure, the humidity, and the temperature around him, and he can also connect to other weather stations. So he has a weather station continuously connected to his head, and this allows him to have a high perception of weather. He's literally a weatherman. There's also many people now with the sense of north implanted on the leg, so whenever you move, then you feel the vibration of north. It means that that's where the north is. So this allows you to have a sense of orientation implanted in your body. This is retroception. This was the first prototype. It allows you to sense what's behind. So if someone walks behind you, you can feel the presence. This is by Joe Dagny echolocation, inspired by bats. Many animals can sense 360 degrees through echolocation. He has two implants in his cheekbones and at the back. And then if there's any presence around him, he can feel it. He doesn't need to use his eyes or ears, and he can decide the exact range and also the temperature that he wants to sense. This is also an air quality sense. It allows you to feel the quality of the air. So when you walk around the city, you can feel if the air quality is dropping or getting better. This is by Kai Landre. He's developing the cosmic ray sense. So now there's many cosmic rays falling here from space, but we don't sense them. Through this mechanism, he can actually sense these cosmic rays. And depending on the frequency, he knows how old the cosmic ray sense is. So if it's a million years old, it has a specific sound. If it's younger, a different sound. And he's continuously sensing them through bone conduction. This is a student developing an ultraviolet sense. It's a skin that will be placed in his arm. This is the first prototype, but it will be much smaller. And this will allow him to have a high perception of ultraviolet light. So he wants to have a good perception of ultraviolet light. So whenever he goes out, he will feel how strong the sun is. And this is a communication system that we developed in Brazil. A tooth was placed in my mouth, in a tooth. Another tooth was placed in Munriba's mouth. And then whenever I clicked, she would receive a vibration in her mouth. And whenever she clicked, I would receive a vibration in my tooth. So basically, we both learned the Morse code. And then depending on the rhythm, we can actually communicate from mouth to mouth using the Morse code. We call it the transcendental communication system. And it basically works through Bluetooth. So it's a Bluetooth tooth that allows you to communicate from mouth to mouth. So what we've seen here are new senses, but new senses can give us new abilities and new knowledge. If you analyze all the knowledge, everything we know it through our senses. So the more senses we have, the more chances we have of gaining knowledge and also of gaining abilities. And whenever this happens, there will be new opportunities. So there will be new jobs and new ways of life and new ways of relating with each other. So this is already happening. It's now a minority, but now there's more and more people willing to do it and less afraid of merging with technology. One of the things that will soon happen is that we will see cyborg clinics. In the same way that there are plastic surgery clinics, there will be clinics specializing in cyborg implants, where a collaboration between doctors and computer scientists and designers will collaborate and will create new implants in a safe environment. Because now all these surgeries are being done without the consent of bioethical committees. My antenna surgery was done by a doctor, but the doctor remains anonymous because the bioethical committees did not accept this as being ethical yet. But I'm sure that during this decade, in the 2020s, we'll start seeing countries that will allow these and will see these type of surgeries as ethical. Also, cyborg fashion, once you have new senses, you can use them to create clothes that actually can adapt to the senses or new organs of the person that has these new senses or organs. In my case, I can now design clothes that sounds good because I can hear color. I can dress, for example, in C major, in F minor. I can literally wear a song. Also, I've had to change hats, for example. In the case of antennas, I have to create holes in the hats so that they can adapt to the new body. So fashion designers will have to work out how to create clothes for people that have new senses and new organs. Also, art will be able to express ourselves artistically through senses that never existed before in our society. For me, this is music. This is Mozart's Queen of the Night, note by note. And this is Baby Baby by Justin Bieber. So when I look at this painting, I actually hear the music. So new senses will allow us to express ourselves in a new way. Also in gastronomy, in my case, hearing color allows me to actually create food that sounds good. And this has allowed me to collaborate with Salleda Can Roca in Girona, with a chef that actually created a system so that the people that went to the restaurant could actually eat songs. So the same system that is in my head was placed in a plate, and then when you put the food on the plate and you rotate the plate, you can hear a song, and then you could eat Lady Gaga as a dessert. You could eat different songs. This is how it actually works. So yeah, new senses will open up many, many, many possibilities in creation. Not only in art, also cinema. Once you add new senses, it's not only audio and visual, it can be many more senses, especially if the senses are connected to the internet. Video games can also change completely if you can add internet senses from the game connected to your own body. The possibilities are limitless. We all know what AI is, but what I've been talking about is not AI, it's AS. So instead of artificial intelligence, what I've been talking about is artificial senses, which is a different branch that will also be developing quite strongly during this decade. If the antenna was telling me the names of colors, that would be AI. But the antenna is not telling me the names of colors. The antenna is giving me a stimuli, and through this stimuli, I need to create the intelligence slowly. So when you merge with an artificial sense, the intelligence is not given to you by the machine. It's created by your own brain in a slower process. Also, we all know what AR is, augmented reality or virtual reality, but what I've been showing you today is none of them. It's revealed reality. Basically, I've been talking about technology that can reveal things that already exist. We are now here in this dome, and there's many things that we cannot sense, but they exist. And by merging with technology, we can reveal them. So I think we will see many more projects related to revealing realities. And this will allow us to reconnect with species and will allow us to have senses that other species have. And I think in a slow way, it will allow us to feel that we are not so far apart from them. Like in my case, since I sense infrared, I feel closer to my cat, because if I see my cat staring at the wall, but I sense that there's infrared, I know that the cat is not staring at the wall, but it's sensing the infrared on the wall. So I can understand and relate closer to the cat. Also, the system I have is very similar to dolphins. Dolphins hear through bone conduction as well. So I feel connected to them now. And also, if I see many bees going to a specific flower, and I sense that there's a high level of ultraviolet on that flower, I understand why the bees are going there and not at the flower beside. So having these new senses can actually make us feel closer to not only other species, but also to nature. So I think this is also very necessary. Thank you very much.
Neil, fascinating. Thank you very much. So let me ask you a couple of questions. When you first had it installed, did you feel bothered by the sound all the time with you?
Yeah.
Were you wishing for it to be turned off once in a while?
Yes, many times. So I had strong headaches, and it was very uncomfortable. But I had the feeling that if I insisted and I didn't remove it, the brain would get used to it and would accept it, and it happened. And it's the same with other people. When you merge with a new sense, the new sense becomes dominant, and it can become very annoying. But if you let it be for many months, the brain will slowly have to accept it as normal, and it will become normal.
And we know that like entering a hot bathtub, for example, feels very hot in the beginning, but without the water really cooling off in a minute, you get used to it. And the same happened with your brain.
Very, very good example, yes.
But it didn't take hours or minutes, it took months.
It took weeks for the headaches to go away, and then 5 months for me to accept this as being normal. Yes.
Okay. And do you turn it off?
No, but I can block it. So there's no switch. In the same way that we cannot switch off our ears, we can block them, or nose, we can block our nose. I decided that the antenna should have no switch, and if I ever wanted to stop, I could just block it or create like an antenna lead.
And how is it powered? Do you have a battery installed?
Well, I'm charging through induction, but I've had this since 2004, so the charging systems have changed. At the beginning, I had to plug myself, so there was a way of plugging myself to the wall directly, which looked strange. So after this, I used batteries, and then this was a bit more discreet. And then afterwards, the batteries were not necessary. I started using induction in the same way that I can charge this phone through induction. So most of these implants will be charged through induction from the outside. Some others might use other systems of mechanism inside using blood circulation. So the aim in some cases is also to use the blood circulation to charge your own new body parts. So if there was a root, like how do you call it?
A little propeller?
Yeah, inside the blood vessel, this could continuously charge the antenna and create...
Get it. What struck me with your presentation is, as you have explained, you translate colors into sounds, and then your brain, you retranslate them to the colors that people gifted to see colors see. But you could have gone a very different way. There has been a lot of research done around bats. So what do bats translate? So do they, the little animals, do they translate what they hear into stuff that we see, or do they come to different terms? So what is their terminology in their heads? Why is it necessary for you to bother to translate a sound into red? Because red as such is not a concept for you. Why don't you just take the sound as is? Think it's beautiful?
Don't translate it. To me, I never see color. So to me, color is always a vibration in my head that is between F and F sharp. To me, that is red. And when I want to recreate this, I use paint, but I never see the paint. You see it. But to me, when I paint, I'm using sound. I'm composing music. So I'm not... To me, color is never visual. It's mostly a sound vibration that for you is visual. But in my head, I don't translate it into something visual, but simply I know that a tomato, if I see a tomato, in my head I hear F sharp, or if I see an orange, I know oranges sound a bit higher than F sharp.
Get it. And when you dress in the morning, how do you're wearing black today? Do you always wear monochrome?
Well, this is silence. So when I don't know what to sound like, I just go silent, but I can wear C major, I can wear just one note, I can wear songs. I've had some ties designed so that when I look at the tie, I can hear music, specific melodies that I like. So to me, it's very based on sound, but then it might look too colorful for some.
So when three sounds or five sounds sound good, they also look good for people who can. So when you go to your wardrobe and pick stuff that sounds good, will it look good for me?
Maybe not. No,
okay.
Probably not. Not because culturally depends in where. Like in different parts of the world, color combinations can be harmonious, and for other people not. But in general, it doesn't follow the standards of beauty. When you transpose color into sound, color has its own...
Okay.
Also, when it comes to social aspects of color, for example, red, for most people that see red, red is passionate or aggressive or dangerous, whereas physically, red is completely the opposite. Red is the lowest frequency color. It has a very low frequency. It's very peaceful, very low, and it's very unaggressive. The aggressive color is violet. Violet is in the highest spectrum. It has a high frequency. It's close to ultraviolet, which can kill you. So when it comes to passion and violence, it should be violet, not red,
So
physically.
violence and violet, that's easy to
Yeah.
remember, right? Okay, what happens to you when you hear music? You hear Beethoven. Do you hear music like you heard before, or
not-
do you start
no.
seeing colors?
It's changed. I perceive color. I never see color. I perceive color when I hear music, and classical music has a lot of it's extremely colorful, especially classical. Pop music is more repetitive. It has less colors, and many are repeated always the same color. Like it's not so exciting. But when you start listening to classical music or contemporary music or Indian music, which has microtones, or even schools when they play children, they have more colors because they are playing
That's
out
true.
of tune. So there's many more colors when there's untuned orchestra.
Okay. Now you walked us through the different senses that we humans do not have. Which one of the ones you mentioned is the most interesting one that we're missing out on? What do you think?
Well, many people don't have the sense of humor, which is something that I think would be very necessary to have. So ideally, in the future, I would love to create an organ for the sense of humor. It is something, an ideal that maybe it will happen.
That's a good point, but this might be a bit away still among the senses that one could have, that dolphins have or
Well,
bats have. What's the most in this dome? What is the most interesting feature that all of us are missing out on?
I think infrasound. Now there's many sounds that we would be sensing that are here and would allow us to know if there's a train going here, or it will allow us to know if there's a storm coming, because infrasounds allow us to receive things that are happening far away from us. And this is not very complicated because our bones are already capable of sensing infrasound. So by simply adding a microphone to our bone, we would be able to extend our sense of hearing beyond normal human range. And I think that's simple and very possible. Also, sensing the north are simple implants that would give us a greater sense of where we are. Knowing where the north is, or the magnetic north, not the North Pole, but the magnetic north of Earth, would give us a closer connection to our planet. Yeah, I think we will see the use of bone conduction becoming normal, because we are not using our bones to hear or to extend our sense, and it's something that can be very easily done, even for communication. Instead of blocking your ear when you're talking on the phone, you could easily have a third ear using bone, not blocking your sense of hearing. So I think we will see things happening with bone conduction.
So when you're talking, as you're talking now, will your friend over your Bluetooth tooth get notified by every click of your
No,
jaw?
I have to turn it on because it works through Bluetooth. So the tooth is through Bluetooth connected to a phone, and then the phone sends to the other phone wherever it is in the world, and then from the phone to the other tooth. So I would have to connect it and then start communicating. It's a slow process because Morse code is slow. So just by saying B, this is B, B.
Why don't you just call her on the phone? Not that cool.
Well, you could also call her, or yes, but that's the interesting thing, is to explore what happens when you start communicating through other ways. This would allow me to, I could be talking to you, I could be talking to her, I could be talking to someone on the phone, I could be having 3 conversations at the same time. I could also be talking to you, but what you're telling me is being sent to my tooth. So, I mean, it opens up new ways of exploring. The aim is not a practical one, is more of an exploration one.
Get it.
So that's why I classify it as art, so that when it's art, you're allowed to do anything. And we see it as art and design so that we are simply exploring new ways of sensing, communicating, and exploring reality in the same way that our great-great-grandparents explored the Earth by moving or traveling. We can now explore Earth by adding new senses. So if you add infrared perception, the world changes for you. You are in a new world because suddenly you sense things that were always around you, but you were never able to sense. So by adding new senses and abilities, your reality will change and will allow you to explore Earth in a new way. And that's, to us, very emotional and exciting.
And very last question here before we go off to lunch. You're taking a lot of pains, financial pain, but also physical, bodily pain to have this installed. We saw the picture, you were operated, it was probably painful. You had the headache in the beginning, you had your tooth operated and implanted. So why are you doing this? Do you see yourself as a pioneer? Do you see yourself as some type of Columbus going to new continents, discovering what has been undiscovered? Or do you do it for personal pleasure? Or is it a personal gain? So tell us your prime motivation to do this. Is your prime feeling that it induces?
The reason behind it is that I get extremely bored very easily. So boredom, once you are bored of experiencing the same things over and over, and when I look at the future and I see I will be experiencing the same things over and over with my same senses, to me this is not very exciting. I feel maybe I get bored of reality very easily, and that's why I enjoy adding new senses so that reality becomes new. Some people take drugs, some people get drunk in order to change their own reality. I use cybernetics to change my reality or to extend my reality and enjoy life and explore life as I go by. And it changes the way you see getting old, because before I thought that the older I would get, the more my senses would degenerate. But now I see that the older I get, the better my senses can become, because technology keeps evolving. So if you merge with technology, you can keep upgrading your senses the older you get. So getting old is something that actually can excite us all if you become cyborg.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And good luck with your Swedish citizenship.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.